What up chaps, I'm MagicalMike and I'd like to spend way too much time ranting about Heart of Thorns. Now, by now you probably know me and you must know that I script my videos when I can, and then I read those scripts out so that I can actually make some sort of sense, and so that's what I've done here so that I don't ramble on too long without a point. And looking at the length of this script, it's gonna be quite a slog. It's gonna be a long video, because I had way too much to say about this expansion, and over time, that's all sort of compiled and compounded and grown into, well, this. So to prevent me from ranting uncontrollably without having any kind of point, we're just gonna go with what I've written down here, take it at a reasonably relaxed pace, and yes, before we start, up front I'll say that I'm gonna be focusing mostly on the negatives, so if you don't want to hear that, then I completely understand. But overall, I'm not too happy with the expansion, and I wanted to spend some time talking about why that is. I should also mention that I won't be suggesting much in the way of constructive criticism and ways to improve the game, because, for a start, it's not like I actually think this video matters, and I think that I'd be wasting my breath if I thought the devs would actually listen to me. So, bear with me, and here we go. First up is the story, spoilers included. This felt rushed and short and full of holes, and they failed to give any meaningful branching paths that they promised at one point. Choices that you make do not matter unless you want a warbler, and I was massively disappointed with the fact that you probably get to choose 2 or 3 things in total, and none of them make any difference. In fact, even the dialogue stays the same, and happens in similar sort of spots to make everything make sense, to reduce their workload. The story is the single biggest problem that I have with Heart of Thorns. Massively disappointing. It fell apart for me so incredibly quickly that I had this massive disappointed feeling when I beat every single story step. There was just nothing there. There were loads of pointless plot devices, quotes, like, for example, Air being killed. It was completely out of character for Fowlane, just utterly stupid, and a really laughable end to a prominent main character. And press F to pay respects. Really? There was no big shock moment here, because not only was the cutscene kind of lame, but the sound also just stopped whenever in-game cutscene happened, so there was just no impact for me at all. It was laughable. You'd think that something this supposedly huge for the story would affect Air's son Brahm, but he never developed at all. Again, he is a constant source of disappointment ever since Season 2. He just never changes. The friggin' world could end around him and he'd just be like, well, let's go kill the next dragon. He's rubbish. Sure, he shaved his head, but that's it. That's all he did. He shaved his head. Congratulations, you bought a self-style haircut kit. Good on you, Brahm. And after that, he was right back on track pretty quickly, honestly. He got over his mum's death, like, faster than I've seen any other character ever get over anything, but, you know, there you go. I get that he was more motivated than ever, but not even a little bit of dialogue or self-doubt from him after what just happened made him just seem completely shallow and pointless to me. Many characters also conveniently disappeared for long periods. The 2 most prominent ones that I can think of, Rox and Casimir, were absolutely nowhere to be found for the entire expansion. And I'm not even exaggerating, they just friggin' disappeared and they were gone. Why? Oh, well, we couldn't really think of anything to have them do. What? They just weren't in the game. I kind of wanted to follow Rox around and go with her decisions after the first thing that she said made logical sense, but then she disappeared and I couldn't do that, so, you know, the choice thing just didn't have any kind of impact. Oh, but they do show up to do something meaningless once or twice, like, say, Casimir will show up to portal people down a cliff, or Rox will leave some rock trail to show you where they went, but it's such wasted potential for these characters. The whole Rata Nova section was entirely pointless, and I'm not even exaggerating there. It's at this point become a meme that, oh, the dragon has a weakness, Well, yeah, of course it has a weakness, but we never find out what that weakness is until the very last second, which is, again, just completely freaking stupid. Ritlock avoids all the interesting questions by just blowing them off and saying, oh, I'll talk about it later or whatever. His entire involvement in the story is to just show up, be gruff, and, oh, I'll chop down some vines to let us progress along a path. Great, that's useful. It's not like anyone else could have done that. He never, ever talks about being a Revenant, despite NPCs, and we, and our player character, asking what new magic he has and how it works or anything. He just completely avoids it. He might have at least given us some information on it, since we can play Revenants now, but no, just completely avoided the topic. At the end, saving Zoja and Logan is completely blown over like nothing happens at all. Killing Mordramoth in itself is a huge deus ex machina. Oh, well, we're going to go into his mind via the dream using Traherne as a conduit. Where did this idea come from? Sure, yeah, that makes sense, let's go with it. And then the story ends. Like, what? Did they have nothing better? I mean, clearly not, because that got put in the game. And then in the aftermath, nobody has anything interesting to say at all. Well, let's go kill the next dragon, yeah? Let's go kill Auric, yeah? Yeah, that's... Yo, man, we just killed that one. Can we not, like, have some of your thoughts about it? Are we just gonna, like, blow that over and not talk about it? No? Alright then, I guess we'll just leave that there. That whole bottom of the story just isn't there, alright. Okay. And the Sylvari racism thing was a theme that was actually gonna interest me to begin with, but it basically isn't seen outside of the first mission. Sure, there are a couple of open world little bits and pieces of info that you can find, but nothing impactful at all. I was interested in that plot so that I could play as a Sylvari, and then as another race, to experience both sides of it, and I did, but characters as a Sylvari, they just accept you, that you're still a commander, and then they carry on normally, so it just, again, here's a theme that we're not going to explore at all. Great, again, just disappointed. Kanak had a couple of moments with this theme, like when we found the Mordrum in Ratanovus who was resisting the dragon. And that was cool, that was a cool moment, but there weren't enough things like that that actually happened and got explored. And even that was a side objective that you had to replay the story to even see, so it wasn't even featured properly. And then the huge thing in Auric Basin, Tyria, this giant city that's probably very, very important, but it was glossed over quickly in like 2 missions, and then I guess we just trust the Exalted to deal with the egg, then, I suppose. Collections. Grind, grind, grind. It's a way to make the expansion feel more full than it actually is by having you collect map currencies to make a bunch of weapons that you might not really even want. It's just there for the sake of being there. Some of the skins are nice, but not all of them, and not everybody's going to think that all of those skins are nice. I like a lot of the Auric Basin skins, for example. The Chak weapons are really cool, but I don't feel motivated to go and get those things. Elite Specialization collections are actually admittedly very good if you only want 1 or 2 of them, because those skins are really nice and they're completely unique. I like that system, that was pretty well done. And it also feels unique to go and make them because they ask for a variety of different content to be done. However, some of the things that they actually ask you to do is the same thing, and then the same thing, and then the same thing, like, go kill a bunch of Shadow Scale, go kill a bunch of Skelk, go kill a bunch of Bog Scale, or Drakes, or Tigers for the random exotic drop, and then go kill a bunch of treasure mushrooms, over and over and over and over again, until you've killed all of them once, well 9 times for all those different collection pieces, and then that part of the collection is again just completely useless. Just odd little things like that, that all add up to make the system at first glance seem really in-depth and cool, but then as you look into it more and more you just feel like you're repeating the same thing over and over again. Overall, collections are really all that the expansion has for you once you beat the story and get the masteries that you need. they're also really long-term goals which ultimately take so long to get that you don't really feel satisfied with the loot along the way, and then you end up with a bunch of weapons that you don't really know what to do with. So for those casual players like myself, it's going to take a very, very long time to actually get these collections finished, if you're even still going for them. But for those really hardcore players, some people have reported that they got done with absolutely every single collection within a week of the expansion launching. And that's not because of any difficulty or anything like that. Like, the collections all just rely on gold. If you have a crap load of gold, you can just basically get them done, and then there's no gameplay there for you. So, what's the point? Speaking of loot as well, I think that got handled really quite poorly in the entire expansion. There's only a few armor and weapon skin sets, and they're generally a big gold sink, so if you want to get them, then just go get some gold and some map currency and then you're done. Really? That's it. There's no challenge to really getting them. And I'm not even going to talk about the ratio of content in the expansion versus the content in the gem store recently. There's a big disparity there, and people are not happy about it, understandably. I don't really care all that much, but it would have been nice to see, like, I don't know, those raid-specific rewards like the mini Sabbather and the clearly obviously designed glider skin go into the raid chests instead of going into a gem store package that you couldn't buy individual pieces of. Again, my head hurts from thinking about these design decisions. It's so telling of what direction the game is currently headed in, and I don't like it. Elite Specializations. To sum it up, power creep. You either play an elite spec or you don't play at all. You might as well just be AFK, because they're all more powerful than the base classes, which I'm pretty sure they weren't advertised as being that. They were advertised as being side grades, but that hasn't happened, clearly. So if you're a PvPer, you have to buy Heart of Thorns because you're just underpowered. If you want to go PvP with people, and if you want to do that, then you're not playing competitively and you don't care anyway, so I can't fathom why this is, but there you go. Some of the classes are fun and some aren't. That's subjective though, so you're always going to have that kind of thing. Daredevil is basically the old acrobatics thief with some modifications, and that's arguably the most annoying design decision that they've made. I know a lot of thief players got pretty angry about that, and that's understandable if you ask me. I play a warrior though, and Berserker is basically just the same old warrior build, or couple of builds that now do more damage. So again, great, but it's just the same thing. I'm still doing the same rotations. Tempest is the same way from what I've seen and played. Chronomancer and Reaper are probably the best elite specializations of the lot. They're huge improvements to Mesmer and Necro and open up those classes in actually interesting ways, and I like those things. Reaper's probably my second favourite elite specialization behind Herald, but Herald is just straight up a requirement. If you play Revenant without playing Herald, then you're either playing PvP, which is fine, or you haven't unlocked it yet, because why would you drop Herald in any shape or form? Herald is just an outright upgrade no matter what you're playing there, so there you go. Touching on unlocking them, I think it's pretty much fine and easy once you get some of the Masteries, but at first it seems really tough since you can't do so many hero points and things like that, and you're kind of gated behind some things. But once you get to getting some Masteries done, and once you get some alt characters through things, it gets much smoother as you go. If there was just one improvement to the unlock system that I would suggest, I'd make it non-linear, because while it is simple to unlock things in that little circle system that they've got, you kind of feel like, I want to unlock the traits before I get the skills, since if I have to use the trait line to use any of the elite specialization at all, I feel like I'm running around with half an elite specialization when I don't have those traits unlocked, and it's a complete waste of potential, and I'm basically just gimping myself if I want to run around with that. Ultimately though, elite specializations are fun to play while learning them, and for a little bit of time afterwards, but once you learn how the mechanics work, then that's it for me, because they can only carry that gameplay so far. Masteries, Heart of Thorns ones, and Core. Gliding is arguably the biggest change of the entire expansion. It's huge. It changes the absolute simplest thing in such a massive way. Travelling around now feels so much more fun when you can glide around in the new areas, and when you go back to Corteria, you absolutely do miss it. Bouncing mushrooms are plentiful. Speed mushrooms are handy, but, you know, speed boosts, I mean, everybody has swiftness, so it's not such a big deal. Adrenal mushrooms are amazingly powerful, but super rare, so you really appreciate them when they are there. Who doesn't want to put down 3 to 4 time warps in a few seconds? Pretty cool. But then you have Poison Law, and that's incredibly boring. The Exalted Masteries are all boring. Absolutely, just no question. I do not care about any of them, and the only reason I'm doing them is because they're needed to unlock the Elite Specialization weapon collections. So that's great, I suppose. It isn't. That was sarcastic if you couldn't tell. The Nuok Masteries are also quite boring. Stealth detection is okay, but it isn't used very much, so it doesn't really see its potential. The Wallows do come into their own in Tangled Depths, but everywhere else they're just kind of meh. It's not a very interesting way to travel, honestly, because you've got waypoints. And gliding. Gliding's much more fun than pressing F on a Nuok Wallow. And the Raid Masteries are basically free, because you get them from doing the raid pretty much, and they're required to do it properly anyway, so I didn't really see the point, other than to just flesh out the system more. Because let's be honest, that's only a few mastery lines that I said there, 4 or 5 of them, and they aren't that varied. So, yeah. The Core Masteries are where the whole progression system really feels a bit, how do I describe this? I want to use the word wet. Yeah, or damp. It's really just wet. Like a wet, slappy rubbish. Anyway, let's go on. The Pact Commander Masteries are useless, if I were to describe them in one word. You get swiftness in cities. Great, you get free waypoints, who cares? You get a Mentor tag, which everybody has, and devalues it completely, because most of those people aren't willing to be mentors. You get a crafting XP buff. Again, do you need this anymore? Who hasn't maxed out a bunch of crafting masteries already? Crafting professions already? It just seems like a waste, just padding filler to make this thing take longer to get and expand the expansion content a little bit more. You also get exclusive merchant access, which is okay, I suppose. And then you get auto loot, which again is okay, I suppose. It removes a bit of the gameplay for you, which might be handy if you loot everything. But you can't use it in Wealthy World, which would be the most useful place to use it. Why? The Legendary Crafting Mastery is okay, I suppose. It's really just gated for no particular reason, really, so I don't know. I wouldn't have bothered having it there. I'd have had 1 or 2 tiers of it, maybe just shove it in with a Pact Commander Mastery. I don't know. It just seems like a useless line to me. Fractal Attunement Mastery is required, absolutely required, to get a decent amount of liquid gold rewards and access to more Agony Infusion tiers. And that's it. There's no gameplay involved in this, really. It's boring. It's just, oh, if I want to do fractals beyond rank 50, I need to go and get this mastery. Alright, I suppose. Fine. If I have to, I just don't see the point of it, really. But the most absolute pointless and boring set of masteries are all the ones that unlock merchants. They are completely and utterly useless padding filler rubbish. The so-called language masteries are boring. These people already understand me, but they won't trade with me because they don't trust me. What? I just saved your village multiple times from wyverns, or wyverns, or however you want to bloody well pronounce it. But how do you not trust me? I just helped save your life. Why do I need a mastery for this? These could have been interesting simply, I don't know, by implementing a cipher language with odd symbols that you can't understand that the new races speak until you get this mastery. But no, they all speak common for some reason, so it's completely pointless. Completely pointless. XP requirements / grinding. Goes hand in hand with the last topic on Masteries, really. At first it feels fair because you do a little bit of exploring and then bam, you can glide. Awesome, that felt really cool. And then you do a little bit more exploring and then wow, you can get mushroom jumping and then you can go move around the maps so much more easily, but then all the rest of the Masteries take such a long time to do because they're not really unlocking anything that interesting. And if you're not optimizing your XP gains with boosters and stuff, buy them in the gem store, or going and grinding yellow mobs that people aren't touching properly, they take so long to do, and by the time I had already seen and played all of the content in all of the maps multiple times, that they'd become old hat to me, I still hadn't maxed out these Masteries. I still have more to do that I just can't be arsed doing because it's just going and playing the same content that I've seen 8 to 10 times already. Why? There's no incentive for me to go and do that. Not really. The fact that there's so many filler Masteries in the system makes the whole experience just feel grindy and slow, whether or not you agree with the term grind, because you can go do whatever you want really as long as it's in those 4 maps. But it feels grindy because I've seen everything over and over and over again, and I'm so limited in what I know is optimal experience gains. It feels like a grind if you want to get the Masteries, and that is the goal, so I think it's a grind. For example, I need, between the last Mastery and the next Mastery, 3.3 million XP so that I can have access to fight some random frog dude for a daily rare, which I could do from a world boss anywhere else interior without having to get that Mastery unlocked. Incredible, Stephen! XP grinding has also suffered from this huge disconnect for me. The Metroidvania feeling that they were going for completely falls apart in my opinion, because instead of doing appropriate things to unlock gliding, I instead went and killed a few mobs and somehow I pulled a glider out of my bum. Well, maybe you need to unlock a merchant that speaks a foreign language. Well, no problem, you can go and learn that language by killing some Mordrum, and now you can speak Nuok. That isn't a satisfying unlock system to me. Now let's talk about maps in general, with replayability, timers, currencies, and Taxi Wars 2. Firstly is Verdant Brink, which is the best of all 4 maps if you ask me. Gliding around the canopy is cool because of the sheer scale of it all, and infinite gliding opens the map in really cool ways. Let me just reiterate, gliding is the Mastery that is actually meaningful and very cool to do. I found that quite fun. But as a result there is a lot of non-playable terrain. Airship cargo and crowbars fill your inventory with bags, full of smaller bags, full of junk, full of inconsequential more junk that you just merchant and don't pay any attention to. The meta events are all okay here. The outposts that I've done a lot of times are pretty good. I've done those the most out of all the rest of the content. The timing on them seems pretty well balanced with the amount of day and night that you get, and it's clearly the most obviously beta-tested map. It sticks out as obviously just head and shoulders above the rest of the maps in terms of balance and fun and design. Some of those events are done less though because of contested waypoints in the corners of the map. I'm thinking the northwestern corner with the crashed airship there, and the Quaggan events, that people just don't tend to do those, so that waypoint never gets uncontested. Nighttime feels alright. It feels like there's always something to go and do and work towards. There's always stuff going on, like moving supplies or defending camps or going to the next event or whatever. But it can become very tiring if you just want to relax some though, because there's just it gets busy. The bosses, in my opinion, are the absolute best part of nighttime. It's a lot of fun to go to the Patriarch, for example, and drop eggs on it from the air. That's a cool mechanic and it's unique, and it makes that boss feel very interesting and fun. The Axe Master is fun to coordinate if you can see him. especially if other people can't, because then it seems pretty hilarious to watch everybody die to stuff that they can't see and understand, and watch people hit in the air where they can't see the enemy. It's pretty cool that they can actually get involved with that too, without the mastery. The triple boss group thing in the very centre of the map is pretty good as well. I can't remember the name of those bosses. I think those are decent. They're all varied boss mechanics all in one little arena, and then you get a bigger boss that flings people around, and that's quite fun to watch as well if people don't know what they're doing. And the main wyvern fight is fine when people can beat the break bar, otherwise it just takes forever to die. The problem is that the raid entrance is also in the map, so tons and tons of people AFK, and the map becomes much harder to push to tier 4 for the armor rewards, which is not well thought out if you ask me. Auric Basin is a semi-decent map, but it's very flat. The contrast from coming out of Verdant Brink with all the extreme gliding that you can go and do there is it really contrasts, and you can tell this map wasn't designed with all that much gliding involved, which is a shame because it's really fun to go and glide, and I just missed it immediately. There are places where you can glide, obviously, but you have to go looking for them, and most of that is really just interior. There's some fun scavenger hunt achievements, there's a decent amount of events to do, which is always handy. The meta cycles do happen really fast when people are pushing those events, though. The Octovine is an easy meta to beat, requiring very little coordination, but it happens so often that it becomes really quite boring to have to wait for it to end, or for it to even start, i.e. waiting in golden armors and being stuck in them, getting told, if you don't move, you're going to get kicked out of this, and when you get kicked out of it, you've wasted your time because we've now lost that quite useful piece of gear that we no longer have anymore. So you're kind of stuck if you go for an armor piece. And all this just kind of sucks when you want to go and do other stuff in the map, like adventures that get locked off as soon as the meta starts. And this is where Taxi Wars 2 starts, this new thing that's happened, because people only want to do the meta and get the chests. This is because you need so much currency from this map for all of the collections involved in it. That feeling that people talk about of being on a timer really starts to hit here. And that feeling of being unable to solo a lot of the hero challenges also starts to creep up. For me, I felt really awkward asking in map chat every time I needed help on just about every hero point involved in the entire place. It just felt really awkward since I'm so used to being able to go do stuff on my own. And sometimes I could, but suddenly I couldn't, which I guess is the point of an MMO, but this is new for Guild Wars 2 and it didn't feel right to me. It felt awkward as well doing exploration when people wanted help with events because I wasn't being useful. I was taking a spot on the map that someone who wanted to help needed, and that really sucks. That feeling just sucks. Also, in Auric Basin are the first real mastery gates that really start to hit you quite hard. It's subjective whether or not you like that system, but for me the Metroidvania theme that they were going for really doesn't feel right, simply due to how Masteries work that I explained earlier on. So, yeah. Tangled Depths. This map. Newark Wallows become incredibly useful here. The map looks really nice. That's about all I really have to say about TD. Once you learn the map some, it gets easier to travel around, but most of the time it's confusing, and it stays confusing, and if you leave it for a week or two and then come back to it, you're suddenly lost again. And then you realise that there's basically sod all to do in the entire map for the most part. Ratanovas is a cool area, which is just one little part of it off to the side with some cute little throwbacks to the lore and stuff like that, but the rest of the map is just a chack gauntlet, really. And if you ask me, I think the meta event in the map is terrible. The pre-events can be done within 30 minutes, and I'm being generous there, you could probably do it much faster than that if you were organised. And then the chat Garant spawns every 2 hours. 2 hours! What am I supposed to do for an hour and a half? Auric Basin is a constant rush to do things, and it can be stressful and really quite annoying and interrupty. But then this is the complete opposite. There's nothing to do for an hour and a half. And then maybe you beat it. You do stuff, and then you get organised and things, but that last 30 minutes is trying to organise a pug to do that map that will, most of the time, ultimately fail at killing the boss because people can't comprehend very, very simple things. Like, I don't know, don't break the break bar. Yep, you've noticed by now I am pretty salty about how many tries it took to beat that thing, and in fact I actually gave up after a week or so of trying and wasting my time. So no, I still haven't beaten the chat, Garen, and I probably never will do. Dragon's Stand, the final of only 4 maps added. After taxiing into an organised map and getting the events rolling, Dragon's Stand actually gets pretty decent. I'd like it if there were more time to explore when you were done with the map, but overall, I liked Dragon's Stand. No, I really did. I liked it. It is admittedly a huge Zergfest, but funnily enough, it's the most relaxing map of the lot because everybody has this very clear direction to move in, and it's generally quite easy too. There's a ton of people that get there though without having the right masteries, like Poison Law, so expect to see people just dying and lying around dead all over the place and being useless and poison all the time. But you know, that's to be expected when there's only 4 maps and people rush through quite quickly. There are some wonky NPCs around that do seem very important though, that we've never met before. For example, there's some Sylvari Duchess that I don't know the name of right now. What's that about? Surely I think there was some story involved with her, but not really because it seems like it got dropped and that story arc just never happened and didn't get the time it deserved, so we just have this awkward character off to the side helping us for what might be a reason or might not be a reason. I don't know. She's just kind of there and it feels really quite awkward. The final fight against the Mouth of Mordramoth is really, really good. In fact, it's fantastic. It's really cool. The first time I went and saw that, I was like, holy shit, this is really awesome. This is... yeah, I'm enjoying this. And if I went and did that again, it would also be quite fun. That remains to be a good map and a good fight. It's a super cool world boss. It's just engaging enough to involve you as an individual player, while also being epic and cinematic enough to involve everybody as a group. And it's fun to just watch everybody on the other platforms and all these other groups of people doing their jobs and stuff while you haven't got anything to do. And overall that fight just comes across and is very well done, and I enjoy it. It's really cool. Overall, each of these maps had their moments for me, and it was fun. I can't stress that enough. It was fun to explore them all for the first 3 or 4 times or so. But after that, there's nothing new to see, and I had run out of stuff to do that I actually like doing the most, which is exploring. Because the scope of this expansion is so tiny compared to the core game where there was like, what, 30 maps or so? So I didn't get a whole lot of time out of the exploring and then just kind of ran out of things to do. Not to mention that all these 4 maps are running on timers, and they're not quite populated with enough events sometimes, or other times they are, and it's either stressful or boring and there's no middle ground. It's weird. And all this just contributed to not being nearly enough to keep me interested for very long. Adventures are actually the single best feature, if you ask me. I think these were really, really cool, and that's why I want to talk about them here. I did many of these regularly, and if I were still playing right now I would still be doing them regularly because they offered good daily XP and fair rewards for the time invested in them. The better balanced ones felt like I could make progress and learn them, and it gave that sense of progression that I wanted from the mastery system that didn't give me it. And then I could improve my scores and times to hit that gold medal, and it really felt like I was upping the tiers there and getting better at them. But those are the good ones, and a select few of them feel completely unfair. Completely unfair, and that isn't... it's not right. So in Verdant Brink, there were Tendril Torches. This was the first adventure that I played, and it's totally doable with just bouncing mushrooms, and maybe even without if you're really good, but I don't know. I don't know about that. It promotes skillful play and it's fun, and it's a simple one, and I felt that sense of progression very, very quickly in there. Bugs in the Branches was also an easy one to beat once you got Updraft Mastery and understood where all the bugs were and learnt where to go, and it was fun to optimise my route and replay it every time. No problems with Bugs in the Branches whatsoever. The Flying Circus is another gliding one. It really requires infinite gliding to really get the most out of it, and sometimes the end doesn't trigger, which is massively annoying since it takes 2 to 3 minutes to go and do that, and if you get nothing out of it and then have to reset, it can be very annoying. Should also mention, by the way, there's a reset button. You just hit your elite skill twice and then you reset the adventure immediately. You really get that Super Meat Boy feel out of it, where you can just try again and again and again and again, and it's honestly really, really well implemented. The shooting gallery is it's completely RNG based, and that is bullshit, unfair to the extreme. I still, to this day, am part of a very small group of people to even actually get the gold medal on it. And that isn't due to too much skill. Yes, there is some skill involved, but most of it is luck-based, and that really goes against the whole design philosophy of adventures, where you can just practice and get better and better and better. When there's complete luck involved, that practice that you put in only goes so far, because then suddenly they throw you for a loop, and, well, you just wasted that attempt, and that sucks. The Salvage Pit, on the other hand, is so incredibly easy, and more so when you get speed boost mushrooms, that it almost felt like a complete waste of time to even have it there. But hey, I'll take the free XP, I suppose. In Auric Basin, the floor is lava. I will spare you an enormous rant on this thing, because I got pretty angry about this one. It is tuned so finely that after 15 hours of practice, no word of a lie, 15 hours at least, not all at once, I took breaks, obviously, over a few days, 15 hours! I can't stress this enough. And I followed a route on YouTube that beats it with 10 whole seconds to spare. I still cannot get better than silver on that. I can't. It's tuned that finely, and it relies so heavily on ping that it just, if you have a ping any higher than about 50, you basically get screwed because of the amount of interactions with the environment that you have to make. And it's glitchy, and it's frustrating, and it's incredibly unfair. Great if you've got the right, if you're a European playing in Europe, or if you're an American playing in America, but if you're, I don't know, let's say you're from New Zealand, good luck, you're never going to beat it. RIP. And that also sucks if you want all the mastery points, because they're gated behind getting gold on all of these things. So yeah, that's an odd thing. I'm surprised it hasn't been fixed or toned down a little bit to make it slightly easier yet. Who knows, maybe not enough people have complained about it, but I bloody well will do. On Wings of Gold is a fun one, on the other hand, to replay. It's excuses to glide around like this that are incredibly welcomed by me and most of the rest of the community. It's easy to get gold on, but it's hard to really optimise that route and master it and get on the leaderboards, if you care about that sort of thing. Sanctum Scramble is pretty well balanced, if you ask me. I sometimes just miss out on gold on replays of that adventure, and I think it's still decently challenging, and it offers some fun optimizations and improvements that you can make. Overall, it's fun, and you get access to those wing skills that are a lot of fun to play with. Fallen Masks is another RNG challenge that relies on luck more than skill. It's not fun at all. I'm just going to gloss over that one because I gave it 2 or 3 attempts, got silver, and went, yeah, not doing this again. Sod it, I don't have the time to waste. And then we have A Fungus Among Us, which is a lot of fun to just say. A Fungus Among Us. A Fungus Among Us. It took me a while to beat it as well, which was fun. Finding those perfect spots to use those 2 skills that you get and really optimise the movements was a lot of fun to do, and I really enjoyed doing that. And if you're really good at it, it's possible to do it without speed mushrooms, which is really skillful. So there's no adventures in Dragon's Stand, obviously, because it's all, like, pretty important to get people to stick and stay focused on the task. So Tangled Depths is the last map that had adventures on it, the first being the Leyline Run, and once you find out that you can charge into some of those spots that are just like glowing and they look kind of windy, if you can charge into those and jump across the gaps automatically, it suddenly becomes a lot easier and you go, oh right, I get it now. It takes some skill to really master it fully, again, that's the whole point of what makes these adventures fun, but ultimately it's quite easy to repeat and get the gold medal on. So yeah, I like that one. The drone race, though, is incredibly easy with Poison Law Mastery. I have no idea why you'd even try it without that, and again, it just feels like a kind of wasted opportunity to have any kind of challenge there. It's easy. Too easy. Beetle Feast is a well-balanced one. It's got easy mastery requirements, and it takes some skill to remember where the mushrooms are, and when to use your skills, and overall, this is a fun one to repeat because of those factors. The Haywire Punch-O-Matic is the only one that I haven't even tried because I don't think I have the mastery for it yet, because it's one of the exalted ones and I just didn't focus on those because they weren't important. From what I hear though, it is fun, but literally impossible to get gold. Literally impossible, and I'm not exaggerating. Why? Why is that? Why is that still the case in December? Like 2 or 3 months after the launch? I don't know. And the final one to mention is the Scrap Rifle Field Test. There's something about this one that I just can't seem to master. All the rest, I see myself improving, but this one I just can't seem to get those last 10, 20 or 30 so kills that I need for gold. But I can safely say that this one is fair because friends have beaten it, and I admit defeat here. I just can't seem to get that one. So yes, overall adventures, generally pretty good fun. Except for those few that I don't like, which we're not going to talk about ever again. Let's move on to some other features. The Legendary Journey. What a complete and utter joke. Nothing about this journey is legendary at all. Despite being in development for many, many years, since I believe 2012, on that blog post that we got about legendary collections. Yeah, that precursor scavenger hunt that's been in development for such a long time, here's what we got. We got a collection that involves grinding mastery XP in old areas, then you do some fun and interesting new objectives in those collections, and then you just grind a ton of gold and ascended materials to build a precursor. Wow. Wow, that's what you came up with? I mean, take this example. What a massively fun time it is to grind almost 1,000 gold to build Dawn, when I could just buy it for 600 gold on the trading post. Why would I do the collection, which only involves some unique gameplay, when I could just buy it for nearly half the price? And not only that, if I'm doing the collection and getting those ascended materials built up, at some point I'm going to get 600 gold's worth of ascended materials, and go, I'm not done with this collection yet, but I could just sell these and buy the precursor. Something's wrong here. The balance has not been struck correctly, and that's a shame because some of the other ones have been struck correctly. Just Dawn's one of those really bad examples. Oh, and not to mention there's also time gates attached because of ascended material crafting, unless you want to buy them, which again defeats the whole purpose of it. Oh, wait, no, not that. I thought I was done, and I'm not. I should also mention that some of the things that they ask you to do in these collections are completely stupid. Go and fail this event so that some other obscure event can spawn and then you can do that event and get credit for that piece of the collection. What? You want people to fail events? How do you expect people to do that in an open world environment where people just don't listen to other players and just go do the events because you're encouraged to do those events? Stupid! New legendary weapons. Well, we only got 3 of them, so where are the rest? They're in development, because apparently they didn't have enough time to get those finished. In fact, really they didn't have enough time to finish these 3 and the previous set that we had. While all three of these do look really very nice, no sarcasm here, honest. That sounded sarcastic again, didn't it? I'm not being sarcastic, they look really, really cool. They're really nice and shiny, and they are arguably really cool. I will say that this is arguably yet more evidence that Heart of Thorns was pushed out unfinished. Again, like the core game. And you might call me out there and say that, you might argue that it'll be fun to see them release more legendaries later on, and we'll be like, oh, that's exciting and stuff, but honestly, with all these bugged and, as I just previously said, these badly thought out collections for the legendaries, I would say that that is evidence enough for me to support that they just aren't finished. So, take that however you want to take it, I suppose. They're not done, that's a fact. World versus World. This game mode was in such a sorry state anyway, and Heart of Thorns came out and really did nothing to help it out at all. I don't play any World v World at all, because it's just never interested me. But from what I've read, and from what I hear, all the time, it's just completely dead awful at the moment. And while the devs are now supposedly focusing on developing the mode now, I have to wonder why it launched without many of the suggested improvements from those public betas, and from those closed beta events with all the streamers getting involved and stuff. Were they really betas? Or were they just publicity events? They were not real betas at all, because the changes didn't happen. How can you argue against this? I don't get it. How can you defend this? That's all I can really say on World v World. I just don't play it, and honestly I couldn't recommend it either in just the constant state that it's in right now. I mean, if you just want one example, take a look at the map for the Mists at the moment. Those new maps have been slapped on top of the old maps, and they look badly photoshopped. In fact, they don't even look photoshopped, they look like they used MS Paint to stick these things on. They couldn't even blend them together, or make a new map. It hurts my brain, honestly. It really does. But what about structured PvP? Well, this is another mode that I can't really talk all that much about. However, leagues just don't interest me at all. I understand the push for esports, and I welcome it, just as long as it isn't hurting any other parts of the game, which it kind of is a little bit. But I'm all for esports. Guild Wars 2 should do well. There's no reason why it shouldn't. But it's kind of hurting other parts of the game. I've never been all that into getting on leaderboards and things like that, so it doesn't really interest me. And talking about leaderboards, I should also mention how completely, again, I'm going to use this phrase, completely and utterly broken the MMR and ranking systems are. Just look at any Reddit thread at all that talks about it, and it's just completely broken. There's no two ways about that. And the current meta at the moment is a complete joke. Again, just hilariously bad. It's a waste of time for me to really talk about the meta. It's just tanky. Nobody dies. There's infinite boons. There's some conditions that get cleansed immediately because of resistance, and just nobody dies. And as soon as one person scores a kill, then that snowballs into capping the point, and then the point gets capped, and then that team wins. It takes up to about 5 to 7 minutes to score that one kill, and then from there that team has then won. Which isn't fun to watch, it's not fun to play, it's not fun to stream, it's not fun, and that's a bad thing for the game. Even the pro teams aren't enjoying PvP right now, based on what happened during that one ESL, where that one team just quit. Outright quit on a very high profile stream. That's bad news. That's bad. Moving back to PvE, where I kind of know some stuff. Fractals. I really liked the change to make each fractal scale a single fractal stage, instead of a set of 3. What I didn't like about that is that the scales from 50 to 100 are all incredibly dull, and they don't really offer any great rewards for doing them. In fact, they offer basically nothing. I mean, you get a bit of gold, you get nothing unique, you might get one of those gold fractal weapons, ooh, but people don't seem to like them. Why would anyone really even bother repeating these scales after they do them once to get the achievement? That's a huge problem too. Why would you? You do those things, they're a kind of a slog and a grind and they're not really that fun at all, and then you never touch them again. In fact, nobody does. Nobody goes and repeats them because there's no daily for them. They just do the dailies below rank 50, and that's it. Those fabled fractal leaderboards also never came with the expansion, and they still haven't come to this day, a few months after the launch of Heart of Thorns. Who saw that coming? Well, everybody really, because who gives a damn about the fractal leaderboards? Well, the people that do give a damn about them are probably looking to make the fractal legendary backpiece, because, let's face it, it's probably going to be tied to those leaderboards. And the people that wanted to make that are now waiting for the next stage of it to be released. So they have a precursor that they can't do anything with. Time gates have been completely wasted in this instance because people have caught up to the gated content. So, not only that, the drop rates on Ascended Gear got completely gutted. They might have been improved by now, but we still have to wait and see what people get in terms of drop rate research. But gold rewards got nerfed and gated behind pointless masteries to make people buy Heart of Thorns. And worst of all for me, the instabilities, the whole gameplay mechanic of Fractals beyond level 30 got reworked to be boring. Again. There is now a total of instead 20, there used to be at least 20, but now there's a total of 7 instabilities from level 30 to level 100. 70 levels, 7 instabilities. I'm just going to leave that silence there because I think that speaks for itself. All 7 of these, by the way, are also designed intrinsically to punish the Berserker meta and stacking strategies, but all they really do is slow people down and they just annoy us. They're not really mechanics that we have to think about, they're just dull. Enemies stack boons whenever you crit them or whenever they crit you. Enemies explode and knock you around, and why? Why? I could see maybe for one fractal that would be funny, but for like 20 fractals? 30 fractals? Suddenly that's really tedious, and I don't understand why that's been a thing. Why implement that? Why scrap all those old fractal instabilities that worked perfectly fine? I don't know. Why get rid of those? What happened to the Mossman hunting you down through random fractals? That one was really fun. I'd like to see that be a recurring instability, not dodge rolling removes all of your boons that you've worked to stack. The raid. For those hardcore people that wanted this kind of thing, which I kind of did. I did want the raid to experience it. The 1/3 of a raid wing that we got, Spirit Veil, is actually very good. Overall, I'm very happy with the rewards, the boss mechanics, and everything in between, apart from gliding, because gliding is server-side. We run with Australian players, and people in Europe like me, and people in New Zealand like Laserhog and Hagure, and Pickle, and they have important jobs to do, and the gliding doesn't work, and then we lose just due to rubbish that wasn't even our fault. That's a problem. I don't know, maybe make gliding client-side to maybe fix that. Might be good. The only other problem I have with raids is that I can't bookmark progress each week. It resets, so if you only get to Gorseval and then don't have time to meet up again that week to go through Gorseval and beat Sabbather, it resets, so then you have to beat the Veil Guardian and then Gorseval again, and then you can try Sabbather some more. I'd like the option to have a bookmark system where you can just say, right, we've got past Gorseval. Hey, I just thought of a great idea that isn't even in the script. Why don't we have Leyline Mastery act as that kind of system? Why don't we just have a new tier of Mastery that allows you to bookmark your progress each week, so you can save the fact that you've beaten Gorseval, and then open that instance back up and go, yeah, I want to start at Sabbather this week. I didn't even take any thought to do that. Why isn't this a system? I guess because it's hardcore content, which I suppose is fine, but it would just be nice to have the option to skip to Sabbatha instead of having to go through the entire rest of the raid to do so. Because some people still struggle with Gorseval, myself included, and that takes a lot of our time, and then suddenly we haven't got the time to actually attempt Sabbatha for more than about an hour, and then we don't have time to learn it properly, and it just snowballs, and yeah. Overall though, don't get me wrong, the raid, the one wing that we got, is good, and I'd like to see more like it. However, this came at the expense of dungeons. The rewards for dungeons got killed. Killed to death. Absolutely stone cold dead. Rip in peace. Deaderino. There are no rewards for dungeons anymore. If you used to do these for gold, then that sucks for you. And it sucks for me too, because I used to do them for gold, and now they're still there, you can still play them, you still get the same amount of tokens, but oh man, you don't get the same amount of gold you used to get, and that sucks. It sucks because I don't see why they've disincentivized dungeons. It seemed like they just wanted to stop developing dungeons or stop work on them, so they just disincentivized us from doing them, so that we pay less attention to them, and then they just fall away and we just go meh, whatever. It's underwater content. Who cares about dungeons anymore when there's raids? Call me cynical. I am, but I think I'm right as well. Most of the community that ran dungeons have now moved on, and while you'll still find people in LFG looking for dungeon runs, you might take way longer now than it used to. I see no reason why dungeons got their rewards changed. The reason we got told was that monetary rewards were being shifted into fractals and raids, which, evidently so far, was an outright lie, and I don't appreciate being lied to. New gear sets, new stats. So condition duration has been reintroduced into new gear stat sets, which is called expertise now, instead of condition duration that we used to have on traits. Boon duration as well has been reintroduced as well, which is no fun to get hold of due to the immense grind that it takes in Dragon Stand and getting all those ley line sparks and crystalline ore and all that crap that no one wants to actually do. But Viper gear, which is the expertise gear, has now become hugely sought after, and this is why Auric Basin is played so much, because you need so much of the map currency to get that new gear, because the new condition damage meta relies heavily on having this new stat set that takes so long to build if you want to get anything better than exotic, which most people do. And these last few topics, ascended gear and poor rewards and dungeon nerfs and raids being so heavily reliant on gear and things like that, all these things have resulted in ascended gear becoming massively inflated in cost and expensive, and that isn't fun for people to get anymore. It used to be really quite easily achievable, and it still is-ish if you know what you're doing, but if you're just trying to get a set of ascended gear so that you can start trying to do raids better, or maybe you need a second set because you need a condition damage set, and you need a power set, like say you're playing a Berserker, and you want to do Condition Berserker, and you want to do Phalanx Strength Berserker. Suddenly your cost of entry into these sets of content is massive, and that sucks. I haven't mentioned the Revenant, really, up until now, so I should probably do that. It has quickly become one of my most liked professions. It's honestly really very cool. It's a fun class profession to play. It feels a lot like a mix of Guardian and Warrior, so best of both worlds really. Well, you don't have virtues, but you've got the facets from Herald, which is pretty cool, but it feels more fast-paced than either of those classes, which is really what I wanted from Warrior. Guardian feels a lot slower than Revenant. Revenant is just this real great middle ground that feels really, really strong. It does a ton of damage, but it can also be really survivable, and honestly it just feels really fun to play. If you want to buy the expansion for absolutely anything, I'd recommend Revenant. I don't think you would be wise to only take the Revenant and just play that, but it's pretty good. The condition variants and the Ventari stance both feel honestly quite underwhelming, but Power Revenant feels really strong, and that's where I'd recommend you play. I can't really complain about Revenant. It's just, as I've said 1,000 times now, it's fun. But it does really require you to play Herald. I guess that's the one complaint I have. Revenant without Herald is like a warrior without a greatsword. What are you doing? Why are you playing like that? Ugh. So the last things I want to talk about here are to do with guilds. And these are, again, probably quite underwhelming and disappointing. So guild halls. The 2 guild halls that we got are really very, very well designed. They are properly amazing in terms of size, design, implementation, and they're both completely unique too, which is really nice. I'm not even slightly bothered that we only got 2. Originally, when we got told that we were only going to get 2, I thought, well, 2, that's not a whole lot of variety. But they're so big, and you can upgrade them enough that it makes up for the fact that we don't have much variety. They're honestly really cool to just go and explore. But that is where the good stuff really stops for me. Yep, exploration's a good thing, and then beyond that, it's just, it falls apart. Unfortunately, the whole upgrading part of guilds is just an incredible chore. I can't stress that strongly enough. It is huge, and it's supposed to be, understandably, but if you're not part of a massive guild, it takes such a long time and such a massive amount of effort to get anywhere that you feel like you're not really contributing. Yeah, you see the numbers go up, but it doesn't feel like you've done anything, and nobody cares that you just went and put 500 Vicious Fangs into the guild hall, because that's like a tiny, tiny piece of what you need to get that next thing. I'm part of a smallish guild. We've got maybe 10 to 30 players, I'd guess, now, that are active, and we've just got to level 29 over the past couple of months. These were supposed to be balanced for guilds of about 10 people, and honestly, if you've got 10 people, you better hope that you're really wealthy between the lot of you, because those guilds that have 100 people that aren't very wealthy are just going to do better than you. They're going to get upgraded much faster. And this is because the amount of materials needed to improve buildings, to then improve a different building, to then finally unlock a slightly better merchant is astronomically massive. So big. So many things you need. The arena is the coolest feature, but the rest of the buildings are pretty much filler. Even the guild portal just sucks because it doesn't take you very many places. It's such a waste of resources. You could just use a waypoint. At this point I care so little about upgrading my guild hall any further that I don't even know what we can unlock there. It's just, oh hey, we can unlock some stuff, but I don't care, so whatever. I'm gonna go do something else. Oh, but hey, at least we did get all those booster drinks in the bar that you can only use one of at a time? Wait, we unlocked 7 of these things that I could use all at once, but actually I can't for what reason? We can only use one at once. Why? Scribing. That question of why keeps cropping up, and let me rephrase that a little bit here. What the hell happened with scribing? This crafting profession was clearly designed so that one person in each guild gets to do it. One person. The entire sole responsibility for scribing rests on one person that many others have to pour thousands upon thousands, not exaggerating, of gold into to get them to rank 400, so that they can do useful things for you. I cannot even begin to fathom why this sounded like a good idea in development. A guild suddenly hinges on A, a ton of gold, which is not interesting, and B, that one person not deciding to just stop playing the game for whatever reason. Guilds have died faster than a level 20 wizard casting Disintegrate on them. Boom! 40d6 right in the heart. That guild's gone, is disintegrated. So quickly because that scribe disappeared. And that could have been avoided so easily. The system sucks, not the people. I just don't get it. Scribing was supposed to be a fun tool for people to make their guilds more interesting. Which leads me on to talking about decorations. Yeah. When it takes a couple of 100 gold to make a wooden chair, a basic wooden chair, something is wrong. Who decided to make the simple decorations expensive and rare? The whole point of decorations is to personalise the guild halls and to give everyone the opportunity to make unique, fun things in them, to make the guild halls unique. Instead, what we got was a couple of guilds that can make stupidly expensive items that aren't very impressive, followed by the entirety of Reddit collectively saying what a huge joke the system is, and being incredibly underwhelmed. I could understand a giant 20-foot globe that looks super cool, requiring some serious investment, but basic wooden furniture, a globe that comes up to your hips? Why? Why is this so expensive? Take a look at WildStar, a game that failed on so many fronts. Did people ever complain about the furniture and the decoration in that game? No, because it was good. Why didn't you take ideas from them and make this stuff accessible? I can't even. This system was so broken and remains to be so broken. I don't even know how they could fix it at this point, because it's all just embedded inside this broken ass system. I can't figure this out. I can't. It hurts me so much. No. It hurts. So, after all that, I'm looking at my timeline of this recording right now, and I'm at 1 hour and 16 minutes, so we'll see how much of that gets cut. After all of that, the question is this. Did I get my money's worth out of the game? Did I get decent value? Ultimately, I would say yes. Even after all that complaining, I'd say yes, despite all of that. However, what spurred this video on so hard was the feeling that I can't shake. That I just keep finding thing after thing that annoyed me, or slowed me down, or made me wonder why that got put in the game. I kept hitting these constant blocks where I'd get taken out of the gameplay and made to think about things, and think about mechanics and systems and these awkward plot points that made no sense, or where's my XP at right now, or do I have this mastery, and can I do this, can I do that, when can I do this, I'm on this gate right now, I can't do this because this thing's going on, this meta event's making this adventure blocked off. These gates that I can't get past, these events that would interrupt what I wanted to do, just so many little things that added up to this feeling that the Heart of Thorns, ultimately, I didn't have a lot of fun with Heart of Thorns. What I got out of it was just a lot of frustrating little things. And it's these kind of things that constantly, at every single turn, at every new event that I see, every little bug, every new adventure, every new meta, every collection, every story step, every single part of this game has something for me to complain about. And every little part of it would crop up and annoy me. And that's what I'm trying to say. Everything. There were just too many little instances like that that caused so many problems and ultimately just kind of ruined the expansion for me. Maybe you'd enjoy it. Maybe you'd buy this and go and just play through it once or twice and go, yeah, that was worth my money. But for me, it's an MMO. And MMOs, the very idea of them, oozes replayability and playing with people and enjoying that time and having renewable, replayable content. But for me, it just isn't there. It failed so hard to hit that mark for me. Maybe I'm just not the target demographic anymore. Maybe the focus has now shifted to please those people that are happy with just slowly grinding gold for literally every single item in the game with no variety whatsoever. Maybe they just want to grind gold and then buy that thing and go, hey, and then move on to the next thing and go there and then buy things in the gem store and grind more gold and get more gems and buy the next thing in the gem store and move on and on and on and on as we wait for content that hasn't been released yet in the form of Living Story Season 3 that I have gripes with as well, because we've already paid for that content, but if you don't log in on that specific week, then you don't get that content and then you have to pay more money for it, which we've already paid for. The expansion just hurts me in so many ways. I don't know. Honestly, if I didn't have my friends to play with, I would have given up on this game after about a week, instead of a couple of months. And I think that is the most telling thing about the state of Guild Wars 2 right now. And that hurts. I could have been playing any other game with my friends and getting equal, if not more, enjoyment out of it. And that sucks. That sucks about Guild Wars 2 right now. And that's it. That's all I have to say. And thank you very much for listening, and I will see you in the next one, if there is one.